Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat. Resolves.
Right.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Hello everyone, my name is DJ, this is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and everyone out there is talking about Zendikar Rising. It's the new set, everyone is excited, but with new sets, old sets rotate out of Standard, and so the Ravnica block is gone from Standard very soon, and it's time to think about what cards we might be missing out of from those older sets. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer, when Standard rotation used to happen, these cards' prices would plummet. But so much of the cards' price is tied towards Commander, honestly now, that we're not seeing huge changes in many of these card prices. So this is not some, you have to go out and buy them right now. Instead, it's a, oh, think about these cards. Maybe they could go in a deck for you. Maybe you have a friend who loves Standard that suddenly can go through their chaff and give you some of these awesome pickups. Let's take a look back from Guilds of Ravnica and find out what cards you should be interested in. And the first thing is the most expensive card in the set. It's Divine Visitation. Divine Visitation is coming in at around $13, and this will be a commander staple for forever. It's easy to make tokens, and when you turn your tokens into 4/4 angels, it's super fun. This is one of the cards that is very closely tied to Commander that saw that little boost. You know, it wasn't really seeing very much play and it was down at $4.50 and then it jumped again. So you're not getting it at its lowest price, but I don't know if this is actually going to go back down again because it is a really fun card to play in our format. Moving on, we have another card that's a little bit pricey. It's Assassin's Trophy. This is sitting at $11, $12, and this is a staple. It works so well in so many different formats. I love Assassin's Trophy just for taking out whatever you need. I don't think I need to argue about this card being great. The next thing that could be important are picking up your shock lands. And these again are not seeing much price differences. A lot of them are sitting around $10. And so if you need some shock lands, you're not in a rush. Next, we have another card that kind of jumped a little bit in price, and it's going to be another commander staple. It's the Mythic 1000-Year Storm. It's just so much fun to turn non-storm spells into storm spells. This is coming in at around $8. And again, if you look at the graph, it used to be cheaper. And then if you didn't get in on it, now it is sitting around $8. And it might go down a little bit, but honestly, I don't see this going anywhere below $5 like it used to be before. Because 1000-Year Storm is so much fun to play. And it's definitely just a cool broken card. Next up, we have Underwhelmed Lich, another card that did kind of have a little bit of a boost. You could have picked these up for around $2, and then now they're jumping up to around $5 or $6. Underwhelmed Lich is actually just really great for all sorts of graveyard decks. I really love the draw replacement, so if you have a lot of ways to draw like a couple cards, you can really select and really fill that graveyard. But again, a lot of the cards that I'm mentioning right now, they have had little bumps in terms of their price, so they're not the cheapest pickups in the world. Now let's talk about some card selection that is inexpensive. We have Experimental Frenzy. This was printed a few times and was everywhere. And the fact that you can get one of these for 14 cents, that is a deal. Now, of course, I'm a much bigger fan of Future Sight in blue, but you know, you're playing this if you're playing a red deck and you need to get cards played off the top of your library. Definitely a narrow card for getting card advantage, but I love Experimental Frenzy, and 14 cents is the exact right price. Okay, moving on, we have, let's rotate this. We have Expansion, Explosion. This copy effect like Fork is worth way more than the $2.50 Expansion Explosion is. I love being able to copy, you know, ramp spells. It's really great to also be able to copy your opponent's counter spells so that you can protect your own things. An Explosion is a little bit overcosted, but honestly, you're using Explosion when you're playing, when you've got a lot of mana. So that's a really solid card as well. Next up, we have a very inexpensive Mythic, March of the Multitudes. This card started off really high up there and then crashed down. You can get this at around $2. And if you're making a token deck, you sometimes want to go even bigger than your opponents. And so finding a way to double up your tokens at instant speed is going to be really good. Not to mention if you have a Divine Visitation on the battlefield or other double effects. So good. Now let's talk about a card that had a lot of hype and then dropped down significantly. Mission Briefing. Mission Briefing is like a budget Snapcaster mage. You don't get to mess around with Snapcaster's body, like bouncing it to your hand or swinging at anything, but sometimes Spellslinger decks want more spells. They don't necessarily want creatures. And so Mission Briefing can trigger all sorts of instants and sorcery matters cards while letting you cast your other instants and sorceries. So pretty good role player, and you can't beat the price of 71 cents. Okay, Surveil is a pretty powerful mechanic, and Dream Eater definitely uses that. Surveil 4 is huge. This is a Mythic coming in at 88 cents. That's so cheap for a Mythic. And I know this doesn't have the same Mythic power level as some of those other cards that we've been looking at, but it's still a really solid role player. It does a lot of different things, and it's a Sphinx and a Nightmare. Like, those are relevant creature types. Look, if you want things in the graveyard, you want tempo, you want a flash deck, you want a Sphinx, this could be the card for you. But I actually think there's another card that surveils best of them all, and that's Doom Whisperer. Of course, you're paying the price for this card. It's $4 instead of that 88 cents I was talking about. But this 5-mana 6/6 has flying and trample, and it has combo potential because you don't have to pay anything to surveil. You just pay 2 life and then you surveil 2. Man, putting this in Sir Conrad decks or Reanimator decks or anything that needs to dump things into the graveyard is so cool. Doom Whisperer has overperformed in almost every deck I've put them in. Now, let's talk about some really solid creatures in the form of Trastani Discordant. Anthems are really powerful. I mean, Trastani Discordant really did a good job at stabilizing the board in Draft and in other formats. I don't think it's exactly over the top super powerful for us, but look, if you're creating a token deck, you should have Trastani. It creates 2 tokens. It pumps your other tokens. It's $1.30 for a Mythic. And so I think that you're definitely going to want this card in a lot of different decks, and right now it's a pretty cheap pickup. Okay, this is a card that wasn't exactly as cheap as it could be, but Beast Whisperer is an amazing effect, and it's only $2.20 right now. Beast Whisperer reads, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. It also has relevant creature types, Elf, Druid, that's pretty good. And I know that this effect on a creature means it's a little bit more vulnerable to removal, but sometimes you want a lot of these different effects, and having it on a creature could mean that it triggers other things, like your Great Henge or your Zendikar Resurgent. So Beast Whisperer is really solid, and $2 is not a bad price for it. Night of Autumn is another card sitting in right around $2, and it does everything. Puts counters on it, destroys an artifact or enchantment, gain 4 life. In Commander, we value the counters and the life a little bit less than in other formats, but destroying an enchantment or artifact is good enough. And if you can find ways to use this card, I mean, the mana requirements are going to be so little, like this is going to take the place of Reclamation Sages and, I mean, Harmonic Slivers for sure. Are you kidding me? Next up, we have another role player, this one in black, Midnight Reaper. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Midnight Reaper deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. So the thing that really gets me is it's non-token. Ugh, it just hurts to hear that, which means that cards like Grim Horror Specs and other ones are a little bit better, but this is coming in at 31 cents. 31 cents means that this can go into a lot of different Aristocrats decks and really be a role player in your deck. Okay, next we have the big hitter Niv Mizzet Perrin. This is under $2, and this card just slams. Can't be countered, 5/5 flyer, and then whenever you draw a card, you just get to send 1 damage anywhere you want. And then I love that whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. That's huge. Okay, this effect has been super powerful in lots of different situations. And so if Niv Mizzet doesn't immediately eat a removal spell, you're going to be drawing a couple cards, and you're at least drawing one card from that removal spell. Like, Niv Mizzet has been great. The thing that really scares a lot of people is that really restrictive mana cost. But again, we have really strong mana bases in our format. They're getting better and better every year, and so Niv Mizzet's going to be a solid card in many different decks. Let's talk about one of my favorite cards of the set, Thief of Sanity. Thief of Sanity coming in at under $2. This Spectre is so fun. 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer, but it's when it connects. You get to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's library, and then you get to exile 1 face down, and you can cast that using any mana until the rest of the game. It's so fun. It's so messed up. It just takes over the game, and people hate it. They hate getting hit by Thief of Sanity, and it's so much fun to just go digging into their deck. Honestly, in Commander, you can usually get really good stuff by hitting your opponent. If this card lets you go 3 deep into your own library, like Anticipate, like that's so good. That's like what Ojutai does. That's a mythic ability slapped on to this little 2/2 creature that comes down early. It's just really, really good. It's fun to play too. But next we have a card that I think is definitely undervalued and one of my favorites. It's Mnemonic Betrayal. Mnemonic Betrayal is a mythic with a mythic ability, and it only costs $1. Exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. You may cast spells from among those cards this turn, and you can spend any mana however it is. And then at the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remained exiled, return them to their owner's graveyards. And then you exile Mnemonic Betrayal. Basically, it's a Yawgmoth's Will for your opponent's graveyards. Now, Yawgmoth's Will is it's like a $100 card. It's very expensive, but it's also very powerful because you can have some control over what you put in your own graveyard. You have way less control over what you put in your opponent's graveyard. But your opponents are still playing Magic. They're still playing Commander. Commander is also a really big mana format. So I can see why this has a lot of restraint in other formats. When are you going to play this? On turn 6, you pay it for 3 and cast a 3-drop? No, that's horrible. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? Hope that your one opponent has exactly what you need? No, that's awful. But in Commander, you have 3 opponents. You have tons of mana, and hopefully you have the ability to just steal some fun cards from your opponent. Is this as powerful as, Yawgmoth's Will? No, I don't even know if it's as powerful as Thief of Sanity, but it's kind of like that. It's still so fun. You get to cast it and then start messing with your opponents, playing all of their spells. It's really great fun, and I think that you're really going to enjoy playing with Mnemonic Betrayal. $1. All right, and then finally, the next card is pretty similar to Mnemonic Betrayal. It's a mythic that costs $1.30. It's Chance for Glory. 1 red-white for an instant. Creatures you control gain indestructible. Take an extra turn after this one. At the beginning of the next turn's end step, you lose the game. There are a few of these effects out there, and they're undeniably powerful. Now, I don't think that there's a home for this card right now at this moment, unless you have a very specific deck. But it doesn't mean that there's never going to be a home for it. They've toyed around with, end the turn cards a lot of different times. We even had one in the most recent set. It's in blue. It just kind of says, you can end the turn. And that's a way to get around this downside of Chance for Glory. I think it's only a matter of time before they come up with some crazy card that synergizes with these Chance for Glory effects, Final Fortune, other cards like it, and it ends up being really powerful. And people are going to want this, and right now it's $1, and then it's just going to jump up to something really high. Ultimately, I think it's a fun effect. I think it's powerful, but it needs more support. So if you've got your cart going on one of these online stores and it's sitting there for $1 for a mythic, throw it in there. And I think that in a couple years, you won't be disappointed because you'll find some place to put it in your deck. It'll be really fun. All right, that is my list for all of the cards that you should be paying attention to from this set. I love how many mythics there are that are really, really cheap. This Mnemonic Betrayal, Chance for Glory, March of Multitudes, you know, really solid mythics. You know, even Trastani Discordant, Dream Eater, Doom Whisperer on the edge of being there. You know, really cheap, really solid cards. It stinks that some of my favorite cards like Divine Visitation, Assassin's Trophy, 1,000 Year Storm are a little bit expensive. One of them the most expensive card out there. But I think there's a lot of cheap ones to make up for it, like Mission Briefing under $1, Experimental Frenzy under $1. You know, let's talk about Thief of Sanity around $2. Beast Whisperer right around $2. You know, these are good cards that you can pick up and put in your deck. Hopefully you like this video. Let me know in the comments down below what cards you're going to be getting from Guilds of Ravnica, and stay tuned because there are more Ravnica sets that we're going to be talking about all of those old cards you need to pick up if you want a little palate cleanser from all of the hype from Zendikar. I'll talk about Zendikar too, don't worry. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you around. Thank you to Cool Stuff Inc. Thank you to my patrons. I love y'all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.